Bruchim habayim, welcome to Tel Gezer. I've just run up here. I'm slightly on the warm side, but the most important thing in days of yore and days of mine, wherever a city was built, was the same word 3 times. Location, location, location. So let's see where we are. Over there to the west is the coastline of Israel, the Mediterranean Sea, the famous ancient route of the Via Maris, Derech Hayam, the route of the sea. All the way on the other side to the east, where the sun has just risen, are the hills of Jerusalem. So this city, when it was built, was between Jerusalem and the coast over there. Just over there to that direction is the holy city of Modi'in, where you can see rising from the hills where we live over there. That's the lowlands. And behind us is a new settlement of Karmei Yosef. You have ancient Israelites, Jews living on one side of the valley in their remains, and the Jews who came back living on that side over there. But why would someone want to build a city? And this city is old, it's ancient. It goes all the way back to the Canaanite times. In fact, Abraham walked in this very city. My foots over here are literally walking in the footsteps of our fathers and our mothers. Abraham and Sarah walked on this land here. Why build a city? And the answer begins with D, 4 times. 1, driving, because it has to be on a major driving route. 2, defense, we're on top of a hill, easy to defend. Does man live on water alone? No, but you definitely need to drink. That's the 3rd D. How do they get water on these parched hills? We will find out soon. And the last D, of course, was dining. So let's go over those again. Drink and drive, not at the same time. Dining and defense. All 4 Ds over here. Now, how do we know where we are? Because I have a British accent, so everything sounds convincing. I can say we're in Tel Gezer, and you will say, wow, he sounds so smart and intelligent. That's because I'm British. I could read the football scores and you'd say, wow, he sounds so smart and intelligent. So what proof do we have that? I'm not just making it up. First of all, there's a little Arab village near here called Gezer, and quite often the Arab villages preserve the ancient names, but unbelievably when they started digging on this massive man-made mound of cities, one on top of the other, imagine a 7-layer cake. So this is a 13-layer hill, a biblical tell of strata, one on top of the other, and the lower you go, the older you get. And unbelievably, in a very rare occurrence, archaeologists here found a 2-word inscription. Tel Gezer. This is the boundary of the city of Gezer. Unbelievable. But that's not the important inscription. The most important world-famous inscription found on this very site, one of the most ancient Hebrew inscriptions of all time, is replicated over here. And this is called the Gezer calendar. Luach Gezer. And believe it or not, folks, it's written in Hebrew, but you can't read it. This is the Hebrew of the Bible. For 500 years, Jews wrote this Hebrew. The Torah was written in this Hebrew. Every single biblical manuscript ever found from the biblical period was written in this Hebrew. But what we call Hebrew today was brought back from the Jews from Babylonia. It's actually called Aramaic square script. This is called Paleo-Hebrew, and everybody used it. The Canaanites, the Jews, the Phoenicians, the Edomites. This was like the Latin alphabet at the time, and this is what everyone used. Now, it fell out of use around 500 BCE, but whenever there was something patriotic, the Jews once again would go back to the old Hebrew. I have with me over here a coin, a replica of a coin from the Second Temple period. This is from the famous revolt against the Romans. And inside you see a pomegranate, as they're all around here. And in ancient Hebrew it says Yerushalayim HaKadoshah. That's what we were fighting for. And on this side it says Chetzi Shekel, with a chalice. It's not the Holy Grail, but it's a chalice which the Levites used in the temple service. Incredible but true. Every time God's name was written in the Dead Sea Scrolls, it's written in ancient Hebrew. And these letters were basically like a picture. Every letter was a picture. And we're going to talk more about the Gezer calendar in the very place it was found, believe it or not, right next to a gate built by your friend of mine, King Solomon. So this is not a history lesson. It's not her story, it's not his story, it's our story. And we're literally going to work in the footsteps of our fathers and our mothers, all the way from Abraham and Sarah, all the way to the wise King Solomon in this very site. Abraham and Sarah. Abraham and Sarah, Abraham and Sarah. They are names that you hear in Hebrew school, in that dusty book called the Bible, black words on a white page. But here it comes alive as we literally walk in the footsteps of the first Jews. Imagine, he came from, where did he come from? That's right, he came from the most advanced city in Mesopotamia. And God says to him and to Sarah, Lech lecha me'artzecha, go from your land. Go to where I'm going to show you. The first two words in Judaism, Lech lecha, you go. Don't be a hypocrite and say, let someone else do it. If it's important, you've got to get up and you've got to do it yourself. It's to do, it's to do. It's not enough just to talk the talk. You need to walk the walk. And our first ancestors did exactly that. And they went on a very circuitous route called the Fertile Crescent, all the way from Mesopotamia, along, and eventually they come to this provincial backwater of Canaan. I just happen to have on me a map. Ta-da! So in the Bible, Israel is called a broad and a good land, Eretz Chemda Tova Rechava, which of course you might think is Jewish propaganda because we see the map this way. But back then when people oriented themselves, the orient is the east, they would see the map this way because the sun always rises in the east. And if you look at Israel this way, it's indeed a wide land. And Abraham would have come all the way, and Sarah all the way from the Iraq over there, along from the north of Israel, along the coastal plain, and visited exactly where we are right now, the ancient city of Gezer, right over here. And that's where we're standing. We've literally followed the footsteps, or in this case, I've run the footsteps of our fathers and our mothers. And what happens when you eventually get to this massive city on top of a hill? This is what Abraham saw through his eyes, and we're looking at today, the Jews of today, looking at what the Jews saw in ancient times, a mud brick gate, a huge big fortification. The remains of the wooden, of these stone chambers underneath, you can see over there where the guards would wait. And the city wall right next to us is an amazing, staggering 20-foot thick, a huge wall. And he must have looked at this thing and thought, wow, what an advanced civilization. But of course, we need to ask ourselves the questions, and that is, where did these guys get their water from? And what did they do inside the city? What was it like to be a Canaanite? Because don't forget, at this time, the Jewish population of the world was 2, Abraham and Sarah. And they come here, they come to this amazing, rich, popular city. And what do they see? Let's go and explore. Right next to the wall is one of the most important parts of the city, just behind the wall, and that is why they call it the Holy Land. If you look behind us, you see a massive gaping hole carved into the soft limestone, going down at a 45-degree angle all the way down to the bottom. And that noise you can hear, by the way, folks, holy cow, bad man, those are fruit bats. Hundreds of fruit bats flying in the caves today. But back in the times of Abraham and Sarah, you'd have seen men, and probably women mainly, and donkeys going down this staircase, and underneath the wooden staircase are the carved stone cases carved into the bedrock. That's not where the Flintstones live, but that is the actual rock of the mountain itself, the soft limestone, all the way down to the bottom where we have D number 2, drink. That's where the water table would be. So year-round, they would have a water supply, both from the water table and the big water tunnel in the Bronze Age, 3,000 years ago, developed by the advanced Canaanites. And in addition, each house and palace would have its own private system. So this was the city's main water supply, and therefore was protected by the walls and guard towers. D number 2. That's all. Imagine sitting here on this very spot 3,000 years ago and suddenly hearing a noise and a shouting and trumpets and drums. And you look up towards the road over here and you see the royal entourage coming. And inside where I'm sitting right now, this is the entrance of the gate of the time of King Solomon. And King Solomon himself and his entourage might have gone through this gate in a stream and a noise. And here we are today in the year 2020. It's kind of surreal to imagine that 3,000 years ago, the very man who built the first temple walked on the same ground over here. We are literally walking in the footsteps of our ancestors. And that's what it means to be in Israel. It's a spiritual experience. It's an all-body experience. All of our senses, we can walk it, we can touch it, we can smell it, we can feel it, we can taste it. And there's no replacement for that experience. Now, here we are, beautifully built gate over here, lovely stones. They haven't moved in 3,000 years, even though the construction is dry construction, no cement. Despite the earthquakes, it's still standing strong. You can see the different chambers where the guards would wait, trying to stop people walking into the city itself. It was strong, it was fortified. We're not here to talk about these massive stones. We're here to talk about a little stone that was found right over here, one of these chambers. This stone, a stone this size, was where the famous Gezer calendar was written on. It's about this big. The original is in Istanbul in the Archaeology Museum, where I was last week, but it was found over here. And what makes it so special, it was one of the earliest Hebrew inscriptions. Judaism, unlike any other ancient faith, specialized and emphasized universal education, not just for the boys, but also for the girls. In fact, the most holy prayer in Judaism is the Shema prayer. And one of the lines is, you should teach your children well. Crosby, Stills and Nash later paraphrased that to teach your children well. Right from the Shema. And what was this on this inscription, on this shard, which is an ostraka with an inscription on? Nothing biblical, but a simple calendar, a writing exercise on what you plant in each month of the year, like a poem about agriculture, because agriculture was super important for ancient Israelites. But most interestingly, at the bottom of the calendar was 3 letters in Hebrew, Aleph, Bet, Yud, which is the word Avi. And you could tell it wasn't written by an expert scribe. You could tell there was corrections. It was written on soft chalk. And the theory is it was written by a schoolboy called Avi, and he was practicing his writing exercises. So imagine 3,000 years ago, one of the God's sons was sitting in this gate chamber here, bored and practicing his school homework, writing in Hebrew. And here we are 3,000 years later, not just ancient ruins, but if you look over the valley, the beautiful modern city of Karmei Yosef, a modern town on the other side of the valley. Here Jews lived, and here Jews lived. Da me'ayin bata, know where you come from. This is our ancient history, where we're deeply rooted into our land, into these very stones. History, his story, our story. Velana tolech, and where have we come to? 3,000 years later, the Jews are back in their beautiful, fertile land, living, laughing, and loving. And here I am, sitting on top of a high place, in the high place. Imagine honest Abe, otherwise known as Avraham Avinu, and honest Sarah, otherwise known as Sarah Imenu, Sarah our mother and Abraham our father. They've come to this city. They've looked at the beautiful fortifications and the water systems and the gateway and the advanced civilization. And they come to the highest part of the city. And what do they see? They see what you're looking at right now. Not a guy with an English South African accent and a blue t-shirt and a red Liverpool hat. They see what's underneath me. They see a pile of stones, tall standing stones. Clearly this was the focus of the entire city. And right underneath this massive cultic site, Israel's Stonehenge, dating all the way back to the Bronze Canaanite period, that is 3 millennia, more than 3,000 years old, is this stone basin. Carved into the bedrock. Archaeologists, when excavating here, were shocked to find bones, not animal bones, but human bones. And this pit over here was used for human child sacrifice. Now, what we call the test of Abraham, we read about it on the high holidays. It's called the sacrifice of Isaac, even though it should really be called the near sacrifice of Isaac. And even show all the biblical pictures show Isaac as a little boy. He was actually a 37-year-old young man, so it was pretty intense and traumatic for him. What does God say to Abraham? I happen to have an actual Bible on me, so let's look at the text. This is a modern Bible. And on it is an app called, and you should walk them all your days, Uvletecha v'derech. And it says here in the book of Genesis, Kach et bincha, take your son. And Abraham could have said, well, I've got two sons. I've got Abraham, he said. I could have said, I've got Isaac, and I've got Ishmael. He says, lo, Kach et asher hafta, the one you love. He said, well, I could love them both. Et yechidcha, take your only son. And he could have said, well, they're both only sons. One was born to Sarah, one was born to Hagar. And then finally God says there'll be no misunderstanding. Et Yitzchak, take Isaac. And where are you supposed to go? Kach el makom asher ani areka. Go to the place I'm going to show you. So Abraham's traumatized. He's just been told to sacrifice his beloved son Isaac, the son of his old age. But that's what everyone did anyway. Everyone sacrificed their children. So what makes this religion differently? But even so is the word of God. So the Bible says in Genesis, Abraham got up early in the morning to do the will of God. And this is something we learn. Don't be lazy. If it's important and right, get up and do it. And he took with him his donkey and two youths and Isaac. And what happened when he got to the site itself? What happened? He said to the two youths, Nelech v'nashuv, which in Hebrew means we will go up and we will come back. So even though this is called the test of Abraham, my friends, it was Abraham testing God. He was saying, if we want a God of kindness, we will both go to the top of this mountain, which is just over there in Jerusalem, Hamariah, and we will both come back. I want a God of life, not a God of death. So it was a test of God, as well as God testing Abraham. And what happened? They got to the top, and as we all know, as Abraham is dramatically rising up his knife in a place just like this, where children were sacrificed, God said to him, Al tishlach et yadcha. Don't send out your hand. Don't kill your son. I just wanted to see how far you go. But of course, I am the God of life. And what was Abraham's reward? He said, look up and count the stars of the heaven. Let's look up over here. What do you see? Where are the stars? This happened in the morning of the sacrifice. You see one star over there. We call it the sun. There are thousands, millions, billions of stars, but we can't see them. Why can't we see them, my friends? Because the sun blots them out. The light of the sun blots out billions of stars. We must not be blinded by materialism. We must understand the important things in life, our children, our families, our friends, spirituality, meaning, purpose. Everyone needs a purpose in their life. Let materialism not blind us. Let us rather go beyond the sun, beyond materialism, and look for what's really important in our life, our eternity. Our eternity is our children, our good deeds, and what we do to make the world better. Letaken olam b'malchut Shaddai, tikkun olam. We want to leave a better world behind, and we want that world to be enjoyed by our eternity, our children, our families, and we want our life of good deeds. And that's what we learn in this place. In Rosh Hashanah, year 2020, we go all the way back in time, the time of Abraham. We don't want this. We don't want to sacrifice our children. We don't want to run after the God of Mammon materialism. We want a deeper meaning in life, not to die for it. We want to live for it. We want a life full of purpose, meaning, light, and beauty. Shana Tova. Have a wonderful, happy, healthy, and meaningful New Year. Peace from Tel Gezer. Very spring, in the waters of the spring, Itai loved to paddle in the days of his childhood and the days of his youth. Itai Steinberg. He was born in Karmei Yosef and lived and raised in Karmei Yosef. Right behind us, this beautiful, beautiful settlement on the other side of the valley. He was born in 1985. In 2006, he was killed in the Second Lebanon War, and he got a medal for saving life. And even though he was killed, his name is over here by the spring, a place of life. And it's because of these people and this sacrifice that we're here today. With their death, they gave us life, and we need to live a full and meaningful life and make their sacrifice worthwhile. And to wrap it up, we are standing right by the spring on the outskirts of the city of Gezer. I'm sure Abraham came down here for a bit of R&R. Stunning even today. Pomegranate trees, fig trees, bulrushes, beautiful fresh water. And of course with Rosh Hashanah coming up, with a beautiful rimon or the pomegranate, which apparently has 613 seeds, just like the commandments, and it's a symbol of fertility and beauty. And it's amazing to think that in the ancient land of Israel, this is one of the 7 species, and here it is growing, and we need to enjoy today. And of course, what happened when Abraham didn't sacrifice his son? What did he sacrifice instead? Hinei ha'ayil, behold is the goat. I just happened to have on me for Rosh Hashanah a horn from that very goat, otherwise known as a shofar. Let's hear what it sounds like here in the land of Israel, right next to the city where Abraham walked. Tekiah! Shana Tova.